But then what I really think what men can do is like less. Just do less. Just don't throw your hat in the ring. Just don't take over the quiz. Just let the women write the questions, let the women ask the questions, let the women answer the questions. Just don't.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Quiz. My name is Gavaghan, and Gareth has invited a bunch of us here today to talk to the fabulous creators of Quizogyny, a wonderful zine that really seeks to address the issues of misogyny and sexism and patriarchy in quiz. Shanine, would you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to the guests?
Yeah, so my name's Shanine. I've appeared on other chat quizzing things, on All Things Quiz. I am a quizzer, and yeah, I'm really interested to hear what the Quizogyny women have to say today.
Okay, and Claire and Alice, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Claire, and I'm one of the team members of Quizogyny, and I suppose one of the zine members as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alice, and I'm one of the Quizogyny team. We're a pub quiz team, and then we started to make a zine, so we still think of ourselves as a team.
How many people are on your team?
There's 5 of us.
And for those who may not be familiar with the zine, although all of us have digested every issue and are proudly wearing our Women in Quiz pins, could you tell us a little bit about the manifesto that appears in every issue?
Yeah, I can read it out because I put it in front of me just so I wouldn't stumble over it. So our manifesto is: the pub quiz remains a preserve of the patriarchy, and we intend to change that. And we recognise that women's activities are less likely to be rewarded, recorded, or remembered. Facts about women are less widely known and less likely to be shared. And then we want more women writing questions, more women in the questions, and more women answering the questions.
Excellent. I think among the community of female quizzers that Shanine and I are part of, those sentiments are echoed, and we've been screaming from the rooftops about this. We're really excited to have it in zine form and somebody kind of putting so succinctly what we felt. I think we'd like to know what was kind of the genesis of the zine. If you were a pub quiz team, what then brought you to the level of saying, all right, this is it, we're going to do a zine?
Well, we used to quiz really regularly in Edinburgh, and I mean, can I swear on here? I forgot to check. Like, we were shit hot. We were really good. And then there's, you know, the five of us, all women, and you know, it was just one of those things that we kept talking about. Like, there's no women. The answer's never a woman. And you know, we were just talking about it. There's this one round I will remember that I think the question was like, or the theme of the round was people whose surnames were also first names. You know, but there was no Fiona Bruce or Jackie Kay or Mae Martin or Theresa May. It was every single one of all 10 was a man. And we were like, just so what we did was on our answer paper, we wrote as many women with surnames that were first names as we could. Do you remember, Claire?
Yeah, we sort of bordered it, didn't we?
Yeah, we wrote these names all over this answer sheet. And I think that was the moment where we were like, we're not just going to sit here and take this, like, and then we just started heckling. And then and then it was Claire really was like, let's start a zine, right? And yeah, and then so I'd just done an InDesign course and got an old third hand Mac, and I was like, I'll start making it, and we can all write the questions together. So I think we started in spring 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about then. Mm-hmm.
And then we were, the design of it came because I was doing some sketches and then showing them to Claire. And do you remember we went to Mary Beard's lectures? Mary Beard did a series of lectures in Edinburgh, and we were sitting in the audience, like sort of listening, but also like working on the sketches for the zine and designing the cover and stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, and I can think of so many other, because that round, as you said, was like the genesis, the start of it, the two first names for surnames and surnames for first names. But I also remember there was a couple of rounds which were famous Grahams, you know, or famous Ians, and it was always like famous men. So you get a whole round dedicated to famous men, you know, by this singular name.
But you never get like a Martha Graham in that.
No. It was,
So I think like most kind of acts that come out of frustration, really, you know, and also by putting it in a zine and putting it out there, it was a way of doing something about it, and not just getting pissed off and feeling disheartened. And we used to do that, and then we'd be like, oh, we're not going to that pub anymore, let's try different pubs. And we'd always go back because it was quite a good quiz and it was really hard. So it was a way of us like trying to make a change and find other people who felt the same.
So what's the process of putting together the zine? How are you researching it? Alice, you said you're designing it, but how do the five of you work together to really come up with the questions and choose the various themes for each issue?
I think, well, the zine is made up, sort of the tagline is fight the patriarchy over 5 rounds, and there's 5 of us. So it's quite straightforward in that respect, that we'll split or do a round each and sort of confer with each other beforehand to make sure there's no overlap. And with that, you can kind of stick to themes or your own interests as well. And it's a really nice way of doing it, because what we've done pre-COVID was we'd all meet up and have, like, we'd call it a mini zine fest, and we'd have a weekend, usually at Alice's house, where we'd come with our questions and we'd read them out and sort of do our own mini quiz, and then compile it basically all in 2 days. I mean, it was intense but really good fun. We'd bring our own food, you know, and sort of potluck dinners, lots
and
of
fun. We'd share the food.
Share the food, yeah. So, but yeah, lots of cups of tea and then move on to wine in the evening. And I love those weekends. And then since COVID, it's kind of the same. Well, we've kept quizzing ourselves, just the 5 of us, so which kind of acts as research as we go. So we've now sort of got a back catalogue of quiz rounds from all our COVID Zoom quizzes, which can be put into it. And then similarly with we had the idea, I think it was was it Becky who had the idea, Alice, for the interviews? And we really wanted to interview, we call them quiz mavens, so female quiz hosts, to get their perspective on what it's like. Outside the regular quiz that we attended, we've done other ones around Edinburgh, and it's by far the majority is hosted by men as well. So we've hunted out and sourced, is it 3 quiz mavens now that we've interviewed? So they come every second issue, and then what issues in between, one of us will just write a piece that we're interested in, which may be related to a previous round. So we've had like science, comedy, sport. So it's the process it's fun, to be honest, the process, because we all love quizzing.
Well, how did you get into quizzing in the first place? Given that it is so male dominated. Like, what brought you together as a team going into a pub and being so shit hot?
We're shit hot by accident, really. But
that actually, sorry, I'm gonna break in there and go, that's not true. You're smart and wonderful, because Shanine will, I don't want to derail the conversation, but Shanine will back me up here. In a lot of the conversations we have with women around quizzing, everybody's kind of like, well, you know, I'm okay. Or so claim your shit hotness because you're amazing people. So, okay, sorry.
No, like, I completely agree with you. And like, to go back to our calls to action, which are on the other side of our manifesto, like, one of them is do the quiz, do this one, you are intelligent and relevant. And that is, you know, like, we agree with that. But I suppose what I mean is with shit hot by accident is that none of us like revise or like learn the kings of England. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because it's boring. It's boring. It's really boring.
So I think, I mean, we all sort of knew each other through work tangentially, and we liked drinking wine on a Monday night. And I think that was it, Claire, right? We all sort of just came together, and there's other people come and go. So we have like this core group, and then obviously like other people come and join us. And
I think it started as a social thing, perhaps rather than quizzing necessarily, and then it just the quizzing took over a little bit. You know, like we would always meet up for a quiz and seek out quizzes, and then become regulars at the Monday night quiz.
Yeah.
But no, it's good because we always, I think, as well in terms of our knowledge and answering. One thing I really like about us as a team is how we can work it out together. And if you know somebody's got it, you know, at the back of their brain, you can sort of give them time and try and give them prompts so that they'll get there. I think we work well.
That's the thing that sorry.
No, I was just saying, did you notice like other groups of women doing similar things, like they were meeting up? Were you like the primarily only female group, or were you one of the few females in general at this quiz?
Definitely the only regular female quiz team. There are mixed teams, but in mixed teams, just by, you know, by sight, I would say most of them, the minorities, women, even within a mixed team. Our biggest rivals are all male teams, all male teams.
But the thing, like when we started to talk about writing the manifesto and thinking about how we were going to approach the zine, like we were talking about what was it about pub quizzes that make them this kind, you know, preserve of the patriarchy, as we call it. And in a way it's quite surprising, because the whole process of like being in a pub quiz team is so collaborative, and so like there's so much mutual support in it, and the way that we work together is not, it kind of fits more with like stereotypes of how women think and collaborate. And you kind of, when you know that someone is kind of knows it, like we're really good at that, encouraging them to remember what they know, rather than being like directly competitive with each other, you know. And that's a kind of way of thinking and collaborating that I think we associate more with women.
I think that feeds into our zine as well, isn't it? It's a hugely collaborative process.
And of course, you know, there'll be comments, so I'll say, of course, I'm not saying that men can't collaborate, but that women are obviously encouraged to behave more like that.
Well, we've actually, I think one of the things that we've been talking about as women in quiz is the concern we have within our teams at times about being the only woman or being one of the few women, and as a result not wanting to let women down. So it makes collaboration harder because you're not necessarily giving your all. You're in the back of your head going, oh, well, if I get this wrong, everybody's going to think women are bad at quiz. So how do I deal with this? So, like, have you quizzed in mixed gender groups, and have you noticed a different dynamic with that?
Yeah, I mean, some of our friends and partners who are male join us as well. I don't know whether I've noticed a difference. But in a very practical difference, that of course it cannot. Of course, it can help if there's like this is it's so obvious, but if there's like a sports round or yes, football question,
just rugby. Like you've got all sports, Claire. You're pretty good at sports. But if John's there, he gets the rugby ones right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think. I don't know. What do you think, Alice? I think for us, they kind of know that we're the core team as well. Because I know
exactly.
And I know what you mean, Anne. Because I also think if it was in other situations, I mean, it's statistically proven that, like in the workplace, for example, you know, women don't speak up as much as their male colleagues at meetings or in the boardroom. So I think that can then translate into something like a pub quiz as well.
I want to kind of get back to the point about you made about list learning and how that's really boring for a lot of people and not always a great way of learning. So how do you pick up the stuff that you know from quizzes? What are the sources that you go to? What are the wormholes you fall down? And what are some of the resources that you use when you're researching your zines and quizzes?
Go on.
Well, I was just I think a lot of it, I suppose Alice and I particularly, and the other women in Quizogyny, we all work either sort of in museums and galleries context or libraries, and I think, like myself, I'm work in the visual arts, and so a lot of what I learn or knowledge comes quite visually as well. So through artists or what they're researching, through museum displays, and then I think within, especially the visual arts, you can pick up so much nuggets of information from so many different topics and themes as well. You know, it's not just going to be about materials or compositions or art history. You know, you'll learn a lot of science or a lot of literature about it as well. History, geography, all sorts. I think that's definitely, and I think, I can speak for myself from that point. I don't know, Alice, what you think about your budding knowledge.
I agree. I think it's because, like you say, Claire is a visual art curator, I'm a museum curator, and then we had the other three have all either all used to work in a library, in libraries together, is how they met. So the process of research is what all of us love, really, and that's what drives us, I think, is the love of, like you say, Anne, like falling down rabbit holes, and that's like you absorb stuff on the way down, right? All that stuff sticks to you, and there is like nothing I love more than just spending hours on British newspaper archive, just like following the weirdest trails of research and finding like crazy connections. Like I found the most amazing thing yesterday. So at the moment we're working on making a quiz about zines. So it's getting quite meta. We're doing like zine quiz by quiz zine. And I was looking at this zine, Urania, which was published in 1916 with the intention of like abolishing gender binaries. And so I was looking at that, and the founders of this zine also set up a few years earlier in 1908, set up the I forget what it's called now, the bar, let me look, Barmaid Political Defence League, right? And we're always looking for little snippets of pub history, because one of the little things we have is a short article about pub history. So in the Edwardian times, there was this group of women who were making this feminist zine and campaigning for barmaids, trade union rights for barmaids, and defending them against Winston Churchill's attempts to ban barmaids because he thought they tempted men into the pubs. And I just like finding that was like, whoa, like nothing we're doing is new. Like there's these incredible trailblazers that no one will know, but obviously they will because they'll be in the zine. And then it's just stuff like that where you're like, God, I'm so glad we've got the zine because now I've got a place to put this and like a way to share this. And so,
so I think, we all gather. I can't wait for that article to be written, Alice.
I just wrote it. Could someone just transcribe?
But yeah, I think similarly, like in terms of gathering information, I definitely have like a Quizogyny note on my phone now. So whenever I'm at a gallery or at a museum and I notice a nugget of information or a really interesting women's work I hadn't heard of previously, I'll note it down under my Quizogyny notes to be able to either build a whole round about it as well, or to add into sort of any general knowledge, any history section.
Are there any women or stories like the one you just talked about with the Barmaids Association that you have really enjoyed being able to unearth and share through the zine? And are there women or stories that you really are waiting to kind of sink your teeth into? Because I think the other day you tweeted about Shirley Chisholm, and I was super excited because I love the story of Shirley Chisholm. So every time anybody talks about her, I literally scream in my own house, unbought and unbossed, because the story is so much fun. And are there any things that you found in your research that kind of make you feel the same way?
I think, well, for me, I often devise the sports round. I think I've always been quite sporty myself growing up, and always aware just of the disparity in so many sports, like for the inequality for women sports people. And so I was always like devising that, and come across so many people I've never heard of, and so many there was one woman who I can't remember her. This is the problem. I'll make the round and forget the woman I meant to be talking about's name. But it was back in the early 20th century who swam the Channel in record-breaking time, and broke all the male records that came previously. Are there? That's her. Yeah. So yeah, she was one of my favourites to learn about. And same with them. There was the Dutch athlete who won the heptathlon at the Olympics, maybe back in the 30s. I think it was like during 30s, 40s era, 1930s. And she was called the Flying Housewife. That was her nickname. Yes, I like this. Yeah, finding all these amazing women from sports history and putting them in a question.
And there was someone, Claire, now we could do a shout out maybe for information. There was that Dundonian landlady that you want.
Yes, yeah. I worked in a pub in Dundee called Menny's, and it's called the Speedwell Bar, but it was nicknamed Menny's after Mrs. Menny. So when you worked there was so many anecdotes about Mrs. Menny and how fierce she was as this barmaid. Like there was tales about, there was an old L-shaped oak bar, and there was a dent in it sort of on the corner. And the legend has it that dent was there when she picked up the old till and threw it at somebody to get out the pub. And so, but again, I haven't been able to find much information about her online to find out more apart from these sort of anecdotes of the legend Mrs. Menny.
I mean, part of that is the problem that you've been raising, which is women's histories aren't written down, women's histories aren't recorded. So we have a lot of these amazing anecdotes, but trying to research them or find out more about them is really tough, which is, you know, most quiz writers aren't going to British historical newspaper archives. They're just kind of working with what's out there. So if you were advising people to write questions about quiz, how would you tell them, or questions about women in their quizzes, how would you tell them to broaden their horizons?
I think the thing is, you just have to dig a tiny bit deeper. Like, it's not that much further, it's not that much deeper. And I think just don't give it another 5 minutes, like, really, because I'm a women's historian. So for me, like, it's obvious that women have the same history as men. It's just not written down, and you just like you say, maybe go beyond the usual sources. But another thing that I know, I'm going to tell you another story of what, like, that just, like, every day there's something that confirms my conviction that this needs to happen. It's so, like, around Christmas I was doing my, like, feminist killjoy thing, which I think is a really important, like, don't worry about pissing people off, because if they're having their fun at your expense, like, they shouldn't be having that fun. And so I was on Twitter, like, looking at quizzes that people have put up, and this man put a quiz up that he'd done with his family at Christmas. It was so terrible. I'm like in there, like, yeah, all right, or how many women are in it? And out of about 40 questions, there's about 6 questions that have got women as in the question or in the answer, and 2 of them are the Queen. And so I messaged him and I was like, yeah, nice quiz, but, you know, have you thought about including some more women? And he was like, oh yeah, but it's just been a really tough year and it's really hard to find anything that's happened, let alone to women. I was like,
what?
That's intentionally ignoring the experience of at least half of humanity. That takes some doing to say, I cannot see anything that's happened to women.
I think it's so good to just plant the seed like that as well with anyone, like, especially in lockdown, with especially at this, like, lockdown number 1, when there was, like, a definite influx in quizzes, whether, you know, family quizzes, friend quizzes on Zoom. I think with me being a contestant in the quiz, I definitely noticed that the quiz master or Maven would acknowledge that. And because of that fact, that they would exactly just dig that little bit deeper if they had to, just because the seed had been planted, and they were like, okay, well, what's my ratio here of women as an answer?
How do you kind of widen general knowledge, though? Because what I found, when particularly, I think the biggest thing I noticed, I was quite new to quizzing, and Anne had written a quiz, and there was a lot of female content, and I hadn't until that point realized how little female content there was in other quizzes. So how do you widen it and not make it kind of like a suddenly, oh, it's a question about women, or it has women as the answer, this is a really hard quiz, as opposed to this is just general knowledge along with all the kind of male heavy history that has been around? And how is that start with education? How do we get particularly young quizzers getting that into their remit?
Yeah, it's so difficult because it sort of goes back to who holds that knowledge, doesn't it? And then who shares that knowledge throughout history. Don't know, what do you think of that one, Alice?
I think, like, in the immediate term, writing questions today, like what we've like, I think we're learning how to write questions and learning how to compose them, you know, like issue by issue, right? And I think we're getting better by switching the question and the answer, so you're not always asking what is the name of this person, but, you know, it's like you can make it easier and make it more guessable.
And still sometimes I'll find some really interesting information and can't quite make a question out of it as well. So that might take a bit longer.
And I think, like, in the medium term, something that I really care about is like editing Wikipedia, because that's where people are going, and if the information's not in Wikipedia, it's not going to get into quizzes. You know, and I really, like, I used to be really dedicated, and then I kind of stopped for a while, and now I'm getting back into it, like just always being logged in and making changes and adding stuff, and you know, we've got to contribute to the knowledge that's out there.
That's a really important point, because again, a lot of people do draw their quiz questions from Wikipedia. So if we can point to more pages and say, listen, it's in here. Yeah, it's very frustrating. And Claire, I take your point around finding, it's the most frustrating feeling in the world to know a really good fact and wanting to get it into a quiz and then just not being able to kind of shoehorn it into the format without everybody else going, this question doesn't work. So
yeah, sometimes whole topics as well. Sometimes I think, oh, it'd be great to do 10 questions on like food. I did that the other week, and actually I thought that'd be easy, but then I didn't want it just to be TV women chefs. I wanted it to go a little bit deeper than that, and it was it was interesting, my research, but there's lots of times I just couldn't make a question out of it.
Yeah, the number of times I've Googled drinks named after women or foods named after women, trying to come up with questions to mix it up. Yeah. Shanine, I know you were interested in the pub environment and the pub setting. Do you want to talk more about some of those?
I think the focus has been even less so in lockdown, but prior to that, quizzes were held in pubs. And what other more welcoming spaces are available to women, and is that something you've thought about? Is it very much a focus on, is it getting more women into the pub, or is it getting quiz out of the pub and into other spaces, and how do you do that?
I think both. I mean, one of our action, or we state, so in every zine issue, as Alice was saying, we've got a small article about the history, something to do with the public house and women in the public house, or with alcohol. And underneath we make it quite clear that we believe that being a woman in a pub is still a political act, just because it wasn't that long ago that women weren't allowed to share that space with men. So I think there is something about getting more women comfortable to go to pubs. But then similarly, we also acknowledge that women take on the majority of care duties as well, which prevents that luxury of the social evening down the pub with your friends taking part in a quiz. So I think in terms of a better space for women, I think it might not even be a better space, but better time as well. You know, so it might not be, because for us it might not be like 8:30 on a Monday evening. That's going to exclude so many women from their care duties, but it might be, you know, a Saturday late morning or Sunday afternoon. And so therefore I think just the time is probably just as, if not more important than the place sometimes. But yeah, we like holding our space in the pub. We enjoy going there.
Are there things that people who are hosting quizzes should be asking pubs for in order to make them a more welcoming space for women? Like, what does your ideal pub look like for a quiz?
More chairs, always.
Yes, true. Always more chairs. Yeah, I appreciate pubs that have stacked stools which you can take. Yeah, I don't know, because it's often quite a subjective taste thing as well for pubs, isn't it? Like, what's your favourite type of pub? If you prefer the more traditional boozer, or if you'd rather a more airy bar or the cafe style place. Don't know what. Yeah.
I mean, we're really spoiled from in Edinburgh for the number of pub quizzes and the options. I have thought about models like the cinema, like where you can bring your baby to the cinema, to have quizzes like that are explicitly, welcoming for mums and babies and stuff would be really cool. And I did see recently there was a quiz walk. I think I retweeted it in London. That was like a history of London walk that was aimed specifically at people with buggies, and just like thinking about that to make it more inclusive. And I wonder as well about Zoom, like loads more people have been able to quiz because of this. And it's just making sure that the air isn't sucked out by, boring blokes.
Boring blokes or boring questions, or, because there is nothing worse than a quiz where I will start mentally counting in my head the number of questions about women and just be like, oh man, you've got to, this better go up quick or else bad quiz.
What do you do, Anne? What do you do? Do you say something?
I do say something, and I'm Shanine and I are both active along with Gareth in a couple of leagues. So we're in organized quiz leagues. So we'll complain to the people who write the questions, and then we'll write questions ourselves. And I think Shanine has actually been really good at this because she's pushing to expand the kind of quiz canon. So things which are seen as less serious issues, Shanine is now pushing and making them fun and acceptable subjects for a quiz. And I think she does it. I love how I'm just talking about.
I'm just it.
Yeah, I think she does it in a lighthearted and fun manner, but by being there and being in the space with a quiz about identify all of Madonna's boyfriends, or no, identify all of Madonna's lovers. It's really powerful because it's saying, you may not think this knowledge is worth knowing, but it's knowledge and it's worth knowing. And just because you don't know it doesn't mean it's not valuable.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to think about the difference in sort of what's perceived as highbrow and lowbrow knowledge as well, isn't it? And then, how to make sure you get some of that good pop culture in, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that come up a lot, and the example I use is primarily because they're female, lots of people going, oh, I don't know who the Kardashians are, which is absolutely fine. If you are a quizzer...
Probably false as well.
Yeah, you kind of need to know this stuff, even if you're not, if that's not on your level, you are going to lose points if you don't. And we go back to what I have referred to previously in other videos as old man questions. And they are about things that are not even particularly male focused. They're just about things that people don't talk about anymore. So this knowledge of you have to know every single canal. It's like, no, nobody, how is that linked to anything day to day?
Canals and rivers
and just British geography, which isn't very good. But then I've been trying to write kind of more quizzes inspired by Anne, inspired by your zine, to kind of go, this is a good question. How do I delve deeper into that and find other things linked to it that might be answerable? And it can be difficult because you're constantly in the back of your head thinking, this isn't general knowledge, and it's not because it shouldn't be, it's because circumstances have meant that nobody knows these things.
And some sorry.
No, just carry on, sorry.
I was just thinking then as well, because some rounds as well are they just highlight the disproportionate inequality within that sector, like movie rounds, for example. We all really enjoy film, but to write like a round on female directors. It's getting easier, but when you don't have the same that's an obvious that you don't have the same amount of men to choose from, do you? It does narrow it down. Or we did a music round where the song also had to be written by a female, which was fine. We got there like fairly easy, as Alice said, because you just dig that little bit deeper, but it still just highlighted the disproportionate inequality within the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up then is the need to dig a little bit deeper, because now we're talking about female directors, and now I run into a lot of questions about female directors, and they always seem to focus on Greta Gerwig, who's great. I love her movies, but now she's kind of become that quiz chestnut. Same thing with, I need a female artist, Frida Kahlo. And it's how do we break out of that and bring in these other women who are doing amazing things and are known to women and say, no, this is general knowledge for half the population. You better put it in there.
To go back to what Shanine was saying, Claire, do you remember I think Eleanor wrote that like really good Met Gala red carpet round, and I think we all got like at least 7 out of 10, and we were all like, whoa, like we've got encyclopedic knowledge of red carpet fashion, that you just know it, so like you were saying, how do you know this stuff? It's like, I just live in the world. And it's like that, like, why isn't that in there? Because it's clearly general knowledge. We all know it really well.
And I've written Met Gala questions and sent them off to be edited, and people are like, no, that question's too hard. And I'm like, who doesn't remember Rihanna in that like amazing yellow gown during the year when the Met Gala theme was China, or her coming as the Pope during the year when it was Catholicism? Like, these images are etched into my brain.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting that the way I consume culture, and I don't want to make assumptions about the way I consume culture being the way everyone consumes culture, but as you said, that there's such a commonality among knowledge among certain people that it doesn't translate to the wider population, and they say, no, this is too hard, when actually it's probably not.
Yeah, they just don't know it.
And this comes to again, I feel like it's the circular problem of, now you need more women editing and writing, and if you don't have that, it makes it hard to kind of push through. But I'm really glad that your zine is there, kind of showing the way for a lot of this. I wanted to switch topics entirely, because I know that Gareth's show and a lot of his viewers are people who not only quiz in pubs or quiz in a league, but are also people who are very dedicated viewers of television quizzes. And if you had your chance to design a show or pitch a show to the BBC, it was a quiz show, what were the elements that you'd really like to see in it to kind of make it something that women and viewers could enjoy?
A quiz maven to start with. Don't know. Alice, have you got any ideas?
Kind of like I've kind of joked before about it would be great if there was like no winners. It's like, let's just undermine the whole notion of competition and victory. Like, all right, like force everybody to share the winnings. There probably are game shows like that.
But that's a really powerful notion. Like, how do you take the competition element out of quiz and make it about the sharing knowledge element, and make that the focus?
You can still have people show off, because I think that's ultimately quizzing is about showing off. even if that is not the word that you want to use. It's about going, oh, I know that thing. Well done, me. And if you have this kind of sharing, you're right, it's about sharing knowledge rather than who is the best at sharing knowledge, when really it should be a celebration of you've managed to get lots of clever people in a room together and they've all been able to equally show off and all get a part of the prize pot. So yeah, I'm very much up for that being a quiz, because I'm rarely the best in the room, so I need as much help as I can get.
Me too. Me too. I'm just there to like make up numbers and
quiz shows are so pressurized though, aren't they? That would probably help take that pressure away, that spotlight on the contestants.
Just show up and you'll get something.
Yeah. Just be like a great supporter of the teammates, you know. Like, don't disturb her, she's thinking. I want, rewards for that.
But again, like, Alice and Shanine, you just commented on, oh yeah, well, I'm here to kind of be part of the team. Whereas you're also bringing really specialized knowledge that, again, is knowledge that's not necessarily valued, but it's knowledge that you have that other team members might not have. And it just requires the right type of quiz to demonstrate it, which is part of the problem. Yeah. Sorry, I'm now just ranting. Gareth, like, can you get back to questions instead of just having like...
The thing as well is that I actually don't watch a lot of television quizzes, so there's probably really brilliant ones.
This is actually interesting to me, because what's the reason that you consume quiz in one format and not necessarily in the television format?
Because I go because I want to spend time with my friends.
Yeah, I think that's really
like really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quizzing is the way you spend time with your friends.
Yeah, and doing it, like not just watching it. And I don't know. What do you think, Claire? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think, and actually, because I remember once from one of the earlier zine issues, we thought about doing a like famous female quiz hosts picture round, and we didn't get enough. Like, I
was gonna say, you find.
Yeah. Couldn't find sort of enough for 10 questions in a week. So yeah, I don't think any of us are big TV quiz watchers.
We sort of started, didn't we, putting it together, and then we looked at them and we were like, well, they all look the same.
Yeah, that was it as well.
It was like they're all just like middle-aged white newsreader women.
Yeah.
Who have been, completely moved because they fit that. And we were like, do we really want to just repeat the...
Even though you're not watchers yourself, do you think that is an issue? There are not questions about women, or, to be honest, diverse questions in general. If they're not coming up in television, is that going to have an effect on people going to pub quizzes? Because I've found, being in League, you get a lot of new people coming up, and it's like, well, I watch The Chase and I watch Pointless and they watch all these things, and then they get a big shock to the system because, one, the questions are much harder, and two, they can go off in a diverse direction that maybe television doesn't. So what more can those who are in question writing be doing to make it more diverse? And again, probably going back to my earlier point of what is general knowledge and how do you widen general knowledge to be more diverse, rather than it goes down a specific middle route of old man questions, for want of a better term, and anything outside of that is suddenly seen as, oh, you must be an expert in women or people of colour or whatever. How is that? Where does that start? Do you think television has a part to play in making things more diverse?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hilarious how rigid those quiz formats are, actually, aren't they? Maybe that's why something like Mastermind's actually quite good, because the contestant can pick their own speciality for the first one, isn't it? And it can be anything. Like it could be your favourite TV show, or Met Gala, red carpet Met Gala. Nail it. But I suppose you still got a general knowledge round to go after that. Yeah, I suppose sort of echoing about what Alice said earlier, that actually it wouldn't take a lot to change it a lot. You know, it wouldn't take much to just, I think, first of all, realise how probably unaware you are that you follow such a rigid format of quizzing, of general knowledge of rivers, of geography. And then just, I think once you acknowledge that, then it doesn't take long. It shouldn't take long. It shouldn't be difficult to just.
That's it. Why is it so hard?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing it, Shanine.
Yeah.
I'm trying to move away from canals at least. I might take if I can't beat them, join them approach and just learn a list of all the canals, but I've tried and it's not worked. It's not going to happen.
And
you won't retain, well, you probably will retain it, but I wouldn't retain something like information like that.
I'm not going to.
The danger, of course, is that then it becomes, you have targets. It's like, oh, well, 50% of the questions have to be about women. And we've kind of talked about this as well in the team, because then you'll end up like with panel shows now where there's the rule that there has to be one woman. They all have one woman. Like it's like, oh, we've ticked that box now. And it just becomes, another obligation rather than it being really genuinely folded into general knowledge.
And being visible isn't the same as changing mindset. So if you're the woman in the room, but you're actually not given any opportunity to say anything, then why are you there? And
you're there to make up the
yes, exactly. It's the tokenism rather than actually that woman will bring a really different voice to the proceedings or whatever is going on. But I often find in those shows the women are pretty much edited out. So you don't even see them on that aspect either. And it feels like you're taking a slight backward step by just going, they're seen but not heard.
Or the women they'll bring on are not necessarily in the same profession as other people. So they won't bring on a comedian, but they'll bring on somebody who may be famous from Instagram or from television presenting or something where they don't necessarily have the same training to get the airtime. So they're there, they'll look pretty, and that's kind of the function, which is really frustrating. I think going back to, though, your point about quotas for questions, it's not just about having questions about women, and I think that might encourage laziness, because the problem we get is you can have a question about a woman, but one of the things that really irks me is questions about women that are about their relationship to a man. So what actress is married to, instead of saying what actress was in this film or wrote this screenplay or did these other things. And people will be like, what, I wrote a question about a woman, but it's not a good question. It is a question that doesn't look at the woman as a person.
Yeah, and that reminds me of your earlier point, Anne, as well, which I thought was really good about going to the obvious, the repeated obvious choice. So you're Frida Kahlo for the arts round always, or try to think of so like Serena Williams for the sports. Your headline act, isn't it? But it's not going beyond that.
Yeah, and people are like, well, I want to throw in some easy questions to make sure people get it. Well, there are women out there all the time. Like, these shouldn't be your easy go-tos, because if you, as you said, dug just a little further, you could probably come up with a woman as equally well known for your question. So I know we're coming up to an hour here, and I want to kind of give you a chance to and share your last thoughts, but I think this has been a really great discussion. But ultimately, the thing which is killing me is that we all know that the solution is do just a little bit more, and yet we can't seem to get people in quiz to do it. And I'm sick of all these fabulous women doing these amazing things, and then people going, wow, that's really great, and then not changing their own behavior. So what do men need to do? And this might be where we call on, well, we'll call on Gareth at some point, but like, what's men's responsibility in quiz to make this happen and not just leave it all to women?
I kind of thought, I had a feeling you might ask me that question, and my planned answer was like, that's not my job. It's not my job to answer that question. Like, that's their job. Like, we're saying what we want. And but then what I really think what men can do is like less. Just do less. Just don't throw your hat in the ring. Just don't take over the quiz. Just let the women write the questions, let the women ask the questions, let the women answer the questions. Just don't.
That's a really, really good point. Claire, Shanine, anything you have to add?
No, I think that's a great point to end on. Just stop and let someone else do something.
We always say, if you don't know the answer, put down a woman. I think that's
a really good point. Especially in many of the leagues that we have with free guest rules. If you don't know the answer, say a woman. That's brilliant. And it'll get people thinking about women more. So should we now do a plug? Quizogyny issue number 7 has just come out. Where can we get it? And where can, I know a lot of people are interested in the badges as well, so you just want to like go for the commerce.
Okay, so Quizogyny is a feminist pub cuisine. We've got 7 issues, and you can get them on Etsy. They're £2 a copy plus postage, or you can download digital copies for £2. And you can search for Quizogyny on Etsy or find us on Twitter, and there's a link, or on Instagram. And we release one every quarter. So we've just released issue 7, which was spring 2021. So we'll start working on the summer one next. And the badges, there's a set of 4. And they're like walking manifestos. So if you support the aims of Quizogyny, then get yourself some badges. It's £3 for a set of 4. And until we can meet up again, I'm stapling them and sending them out as fast as I can. But there is a pandemic, so. And for the whole of April, we're tabling at Glasgow Zine Fair. So you can find us there as well, and we'll be at different zine fairs in person and online.
You can join us for our meta quiz about zines.
So at Swansea Zine Fair, we're doing a quiz about zines, and that's great. So just follow us on socials and keep up to date.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody. And this has been not only an interesting discussion, one that's given me a lot of practical suggestions, but it's also been a really cathartic discussion. And I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. It makes me feel powerful. So thank you for that. And viewers, thank you for watching, and I hope you feel powerful too after getting all of this knowledge in your brain. Do we do a cut? I don't know.
Like, board.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, exactly.